The first gospel written, the Gospel of Mark, records how Jesus was arrested. He was put through a mockery of a trial, he was lied about, spat upon, and then he was made to drag a wooden crossbeam up a hill. He was nailed to that wooden crossbeam, and he bled and died on that cross. After he died, people took his body off the cross, wrapped it in 100 to 110 pounds of burial ointment and white linen, put it in a tomb, rolled a stone in front of it, and set a Roman guard to make sure that nobody would steal his body. So Paul writes very clearly, Christ died. He just didn't lapse into unconsciousness. He just didn't swoon. He really physically died. The Apostle John includes an interesting tidbit of information. John records that a Roman soldier who declared that Jesus was indeed dead took a spear, jammed it into the side of Christ, and the eyewitnesses saw that an issue of watery serum, separate from red, hard, clotted blood, flowed from his side. They did not understand that medically today, but we understand medically today that if you cut yourself and watery serum, separate from red, hard, clotted blood, flows from your side, it's a sign of massive heart failure, clotting of the arteries, a separation of the watery serum from the clotted blood. Jesus was dead. Then Paul goes on and writes, he was raised on the third day according to the scriptures, and he appeared to Peter. Fascinating that Jesus looked for the guy who denied knowing him 3 times, Peter. And when Peter, who had denied knowing Christ 3 times, met the risen Christ, his faith was rekindled, and he became one of the leaders of the first century church. And then Paul goes on and writes, and he appeared to the 12. He appeared to the 12 apostles. And then he appeared to more than 500 of the brothers, most of whom are still living, though some have fallen asleep. In other words, Paul is saying, don't take it from me, just go out and talk to over 500 people who saw Jesus Christ risen from the dead. And they, as eyewitnesses, will tell you, we saw Christ risen from the dead. And then Paul writes, he appeared to James. Do you know who James was? James was the younger brother of Jesus. And before Jesus died, James did not believe in Jesus. Can you imagine how difficult it would be for a man to believe my older brother is God in human form? James had all types of skepticism. He had all types of unanswered questions. But when Jesus rose from the dead and appeared to James, James' doubts disappeared, and James put his faith in Jesus Christ, and he became one of the leaders of the first century Christian church, and he was martyred for his faith in his older brother, Jesus of Nazareth. The evidence is that Elvis is dead. The historical evidence is that Jesus Christ is alive. Examine the source documents for yourself. Study the historical evidence. And if you find that indeed the evidence does point to Jesus rising from the dead, then take a step of faith and trust in him.